Hello, my name is Eric, and welcome to another episode of the craziness that lives inside my head.
Oh la 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 la. You will never.
Today, I want to talk about a subject that a friend of mine was kind of upset about. I'm not into news. I don't keep up with the news. I'm not political. I mean, a lot of the events that are happening today in our world, it's kind of boring to me. And that's why I'm bringing it up, this subject up. And you might say, well, how can that be boring? I mean, all the things that's going on today, and that's what my friend was saying. Oh, you know what they're doing in California? The young kids are breaking into the stores or running into the stores and stealing and running. The mob, they call it something about mob robbery or whatever. So then I said, and I got very, bored. I said, well, remember in the 70s? Remember in the 70s? I said, remember when the kids were out in the street ganging and beating up people and breaking into stores? And because I told a friend who was younger than me, he was asking me about the blackouts of New York City, and I told him, I said, well, 1977 blackouts, when the lights went out, the first thing to do is they raided the liquor store, and all you hear is gunshots and glass breaking and people just acting all crazy. And so I told my friend, I said, remember how the kids back in the 70s acting all crazy? Remember Channel 5 and WNEW, Channel 5 News? It was the first time they had news at 10 o'clock at night because the competition, most of the news was at 11. So they wanted to beat out the 11 p.m. newscaster like NBC, ABC, and CBS. And Channel 5 was Fox 5. They had a 10 p.m. news. And when 10 p.m. come on, the voice will come on to, do you know where your kids are? At 10 p.m. At 10 p.m. I mean, it was in the 70s in New York City. It was quite, and I remember it was a curfew. They had to put a curfew down. You couldn't be out the house. I think it was 9 o'clock. Maybe late, maybe earlier than that, 7 o'clock. So I just want to talk about that a little bit. I mean, sometimes one of the reasons why I don't pretty much look at the news or politics and all that, because a lot of it is so boring. A lot of it is the same. I mean, let's for instance, climate change. Okay, I guess there was climate change. They told us back in the late 60s and early 70s, climate change. The New York City was going to have palm trees. I haven't seen palm trees yet in New York City. Climate change. It was in the Northeast, New York was going to be almost like what you call it, like the tropics, palm trees. The weather was going to be hot and no snow. I mean, I don't think it snowed as much as it did back then, but I still don't see no palm trees. And the stuff that was going on back then, I mean, I know my older friends seem to forget. They get caught up in current events that they forget what was going on back in the 70s. A lot of people didn't, those who wasn't in the city back in the 70s, they didn't know about the graffiti trains and how they were beating up people on the train. And I think they did push, a couple people got pushed in front of the train. And I know now this is back in the 80s when I moved to South Bronx. The women, it was only 2 blocks away from the train station, but the women in the neighborhood was told to be careful because the kids would run up to the women with their bags and grab their bags, snatch their bags, and keep on running. So they told women, either don't carry your bags or, carry your purse or something. But if you're going to carry your bag, carry it close to you because the kids are going to grab your bag and snatch it off. And that was in the 80s. And if you really want to be, I remember in the '80s when Brooklyn had the drive-by shootings in Brooklyn. I don't know, it was gang related, but I remember hearing on the news about the drive-by. Just looked like every other day there was a drive-by shooting in Brooklyn. I mean, that's why I don't bother with the news. And I have older friends who I guess they don't have anything to do but stare at the TV all day. And then they call me up. Do you know what's going on here? Do you know what's going on here? Blah, 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 blah. And I have to gently remind them. I said, well, I don't see any change. Because now they're talking about, oh, the kids today, it changed, the world changed. I said, no, nothing's changed. That's the boring part. You grow up, it's like the 70s all over again. And as for war, I mean, I told my friends too, don't forget when we grew up, a lot of the kids today don't have to deal with this, but when we grew up, there was always a threat of a nuclear war. When I grew up and I went to school, I think it was around noon, when the sirens go off, the air raid sirens, we had to do two things, one or two things. Either we all go in, go outside this classroom and line up in the hallway. That's one. Either that, or we get under our desks when we hear the air raid signs. And not only that, if you're not in schools, I remember when you hear the air raid signs, you're supposed to go to the shelters. Well, it got to the point the air raid sign. I remember, what was it? 60 what? I should say 56, 57, 58. I remember as a young kid, the air raid signs going up. It's on a Saturday afternoon. I don't see nobody going to the shelter. You're supposed to go into the shelter. You're supposed to go to the shelter when you hear the air raid sign. Nobody going to the shelter. People kept on shopping. Anyway, I guess my rant is this. I understand guys my age, people my age, who keeps saying, oh, the world is coming to this. The world is no good. The world. But I want to remind them, we grew up in terrible times, and I don't see anything change. I mean, the closer there was I remember when Russia had put the missiles in Cuba, and everybody thought that was the end of the world. That was in the 60s. Well, I don't know what to tell you guys. Nothing's changed. The more, how's that saying go? The more things change, the more they stay the same. That's all I have to say. And I'm through with my rant. And thank you for listening to the craziness that lives inside my head.
Oh, la, la,